Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this great honor and this wonderful welcome home. It is so great to be here tonight. I've been in Asia for the better part of the last 10 days, and I just landed a few hours ago. Did I miss anything while I was gone? In all seriousness, while it's been a privilege of a lifetime to serve as the Secretary of Commerce, it's really great to be home here in Chicago. So for the first time in 3 years, I live in the same city as my husband, Brian. Instead of motorcades, I am now Uber's best customer. I'm back running along the lakefront. I'm reconnecting with friends, many of whom are here tonight, and I thank you so much for being here. And like many of you, I'm looking forward to another Cubs World Series. John, I thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, and to you and to Mary for serving as our hosts this evening. And to Ivo, you serve with distinction as our NATO ambassador, but as president of the council, you have been a wonderful addition to our city and our community, and we're grateful to have you in this leadership position. I want to thank Glenn Tilton, Lester Crown, members of the board, including my cousin Margot, and tonight's dinner chairs, Craig Duchessois, my good friends Leah Zell and Bill Daly. To everyone at the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, you are an unwavering voice for active American leadership. You promote civil discourse, and I think that we can all agree that our nation needs that civility now more than ever. The council also helps bring the world to this city that we all love, and we thank you for enlightening us and enriching us. To my fellow honoree and friend, Michael Moscow, you have devoted yourself to creating opportunity for American people and to strengthening civic life here in Chicago. And as someone who's gone through the confirmation process myself just once, I think we should all admire Michael's capacity to survive Senate confirmation 5 times. It was an honor to serve under President Obama to help advance an economic vision focused on expanding growth and opportunity for all Americans. And while in government, I resigned from every one of our businesses, and I complied fully with the rules of the Office of Government Ethics. Now that I'm home, I'm doing the thing I love and the thing I think that's really cool, which is building businesses and organizations. Through our foundation, Brian and I are continuing to invest in our city and its people, and I plan to continue to be a voice on the issues that I care about, which brings me to this evening. I stand here tonight deeply concerned that the current policies being proffered will undermine our nation's economic growth and our long-term competitiveness. Think about the transformations that are taking place across our economy, and Michael referred to many of them. Automation, globalization, and digitization, they've been a net benefit to our country. But these forces also have a cost, and will continue to cost many Americans their jobs. And when I reflect on these changes, I think about a man that I met when I was Secretary of Commerce, a man from Ohio, Tom. For more than 20 years, he worked at U.S. Steel at a highly automated, modernized plant, and he was good at his job. But in part because of China's dumping of massive amounts of steel on the world market, the company had to downsize and Tom lost his job. He found new work at a light manufacturing plant. But instead of earning $26 an hour, now he's earning less than half of that amount. Tom and his wife's a bank teller, they're now struggling to support their 3 children, their oldest of which is about to go to college, and they're struggling to pay their mortgage. Now, I know that Americans are resilient. At the same time, far too many Americans like Tom their lives have been upended by our changing economy. And they're right to be angry and afraid and anxious about their future. As a nation, we need a policy agenda that helps all of us, workers, businesses, and communities, adapt to the larger economic forces. But adapting cannot mean seeing your paycheck cut in half with no bridge to better prospects. Nor can it mean that American businesses are confined to competing only in the United States. That's why I believe that the impact of rapid globalization, digitization, and automation on American workers and American businesses is the defining economic challenge that is facing our nation. Simply put, we must both ensure that our businesses are able to access markets around the world and that our people have the training and skills needed to thrive as our economic paradigm shifts. In this past election, perhaps the one thing that Democratic and Republican voters seemed to agree on was that policymakers either need to address this challenge or they need to prepare for voters to upend the global economic order as we know it. Now, I'm not a politician. Like many of you here tonight, I'm a business person. And I know that to be a good leader, you must have a strategic plan to compete and win. You can't wing it. But when I look at the current policies, I do not see a foundation being laid out that opens doors broadly for our businesses, trains our workforce, or sustainably addresses the economic anxieties of our people. In fact, I'm very worried that the real-world costs of these policies for our nation and our people. There's the cost of the ban on travel from 6 predominantly Muslim nations. It's currently blocked by the courts, but just imagine if it went into effect. According to one study, the ban is estimated to have a cost to our economy of anywhere between $35 to $71 billion every year. More broadly, there seems to be a movement to continue to move ahead with extreme vetting, demanding that tens of thousands of applicants for U.S. visas turn over intrusive personal information. That's an awful message to send to people around the world. Last year, we welcomed more than 1 million foreign students to the United States. Students who helped sustain more than 370,000 American jobs and pump more than $30 billion into our economy each year. But this spring, nearly 40% of U.S. colleges say they're already seeing a drop in foreign student applications. Likewise, the roughly 75 million foreign travelers and tourists that we welcomed last year to the United States, they spent $250 billion on U.S. goods and services and it helps support more than 1 million jobs. But according to one estimate, current policies could scare away more than 4 million visitors this year alone, costing our economy more than $7 billion. I also fear a loss that is harder to quantify, but equally as profound: the lost opportunity to build greater ties of friendship and to share our values with people from all over the world, which is something we should be doing more of, not less. Then there are the potential costs of immigration policies. The Department of Homeland Security has estimated that just building a wall could cost nearly $22 billion. Well, it's pretty clear that Mexico's not going to pay for the border wall. And if you look at the recent budget deal, Congress doesn't seem very interested in paying for it either. And as for deporting millions of undocumented immigrants, one study found that over a decade, it could cost the federal government over $900 billion in lost revenue, devastate sectors like agriculture and construction, and reduce the gross domestic product by $4.7 trillion. So I believe we need to remember the economic benefits of immigration. America has thrived in part because we've welcomed immigrants. I am all too aware that I am only here in Chicago because this city welcomed my Russian great-grandfather in 1881. And I am sure many of you in this room have similar stories. And let's not forget that nearly half of the Fortune 500 companies were started by immigrants or children of immigrants. And for many cities and communities like Chicago, refugees have been an economic boon because so many of them are hardworking entrepreneurs who start and succeed in their own businesses. So immigrants and refugees don't threaten America. They help renew us. Or consider the costs of our approach on trade, our current approach on trade. The current team is fixated on reversing our trade deficits. It's become an obsession, one that is fundamentally misplaced. Indeed, any economist will tell you that trade deficits are not a good measure of the strength of an economy, and they are an even worse measure of whether a trade agreement is working. And I think Michael laid that out very clearly for all of us earlier this evening. What really concerns me is that time is being wasted trying to fix our trade deficits rather than working with partners and allies to open new markets for American businesses and workers. We seem to be focused on raising new barriers rather than opening new markets. Remember, 95% of the world's consumers live beyond our borders. And if we want to access to those consumers and the American jobs that depend on that access, we need to convince foreign governments to lower barriers, not raise them. That's what trade agreements do. They're a tool we use to shape the forces of globalization. Deals cannot only be America first. They have to benefit our partners too. When it comes to trade, that is the real art of the deal. Finally, consider the cost of failing to lead in the fight against climate. One study from a nonpartisan group of American business leaders found that the rising seas could lead to more than $500 billion in property losses alone in the United States. That does not even include the cost of future losses from crop damage, extreme heat, and diseases like asthma. Moreover, there's an opportunity cost of not embracing and investing in clean energy. In the United States, the solar and wind industries are now creating jobs 12 times faster than the rest of the economy. Here in Illinois, clean energy supports about 100,000 jobs. In the world's emerging markets, between now and 2030, the Paris Agreement is expected to generate and create nearly $23 trillion in investment opportunities in clean energy. We want to be a part of that. So fighting climate change is not only the right thing to do for our planet and for our children, it's good business. And if America wants to be competitive in the 21st century, we need to be competitive in fast-growing clean energy markets. So taken together, the policies I just described could potentially cost our nation billions of dollars, even trillions of dollars, costs that far exceed any perceived benefits. We risk shooting ourselves in the foot, and what is needed urgently is a coherent strategy and a long-term vision to ensure that we're prepared to compete and to win in the global economy. Not only do we need tax reform and greater investment in infrastructure, but we also need an education and workforce training system that truly prepares our people of all ages with the skills to succeed in a digital economy. Trade that opens new markets to American companies and workers and our products and our services, and a commitment to innovation and to investing in the jobs and industries of the future, especially clean energy. And perhaps most of all, a vision that sees the world not just as a source of threats, but as a place of enormous opportunities for more partnerships, more cooperation, and more growth. So in closing, I simply want to appeal to each of you. As citizens and as leaders in our communities, we have a collective responsibility to speak out and focus on solutions that actually deliver results for our country over the long term, to convey the costs and the consequences of different policy choices, and to advance a vision that creates opportunity and prosperity for all Americans. That will be my work in the days and the years ahead, and I look forward to being your partner in that effort. So thank you again for this honor. I'm very excited to be home, and go Cubs.